Hello, this is Anna from Madame Sew. Today I want to show you how to cut a lot of bias tape in a very short period of time. We're going to use a rectangle of fabric. Any size is fine. Obviously, the larger your rectangle, the more bias tape you'll get. And we're going to fold it so it's going to be very manageable. The disadvantage, as opposed to the continuous tape method that I showed you before, is that you have to sew your strips at the end. But time-wise, I think they're pretty close together, and I do like the cutting much better with this method than with the continuous tape. So let me show you how to do it. So the process is very simple. You're going to bring this corner down, make a 45-degree angle here. Carefully. All right, you do have to make sure that your fabric is squared, of course. So I'm going to mark that. And be careful because now it's on the bias, so you don't want to stretch it. All right, so now this corner is going to come back up to the beginning of the angle, like this. So that these edges are aligned here. Okay, and now we're going to fold this line over here. So this corner is going to touch the angle here. Okay, and now we just bring this over like that. There, and just do a little bit of hand pressing. Okay, so that's the folding. If your tip goes over a little further, that's fine. You're not really going to use that little tip, but you can also fold it under. Now I'm going to turn it because I'm left-handed, so actually no, before I turn it I need to cut this edge. So I'm gonna make, this is my bias edge now. So I'm lining my ruler up, making sure it's straight. Just cut that tiny little edge there. You're just cutting those folds. Okay, and now I need to turn it because I'm left-handed. If you're right-handed, you don't need to do that. And I want, this bias tape is going to be narrow tape, so I'm going to do 1.5 inches. Actually, no, I'm going to do 1.25 inches because this is what I use for, you know, finishing the inside of necklines and sleeveless tops and things like that. So I'm just going to be cutting 1.25 inch strips. I was going for 1.5 again. All right. So I'm gonna go all the way to the end. And then what we'll do is just, I'll show you how to sew them together. My fabric does not have a right and wrong side, but I'm going to show you how to do it as if you did. So we're going to say that this is the right side, and this is the wrong side. So we're lining this up. Pretend that there is a cut here. And some people actually do cut those tips to make their life easier. And you're always going to sew this edge, and I find that I need to mark it. I can't get away without marking it. So I'm going to mark here from corner to corner with my gel pen, and I'm going to put a pin. All right, now, see, when I turn it, it's hard to see with the pin, but it will be all straight. So now we're turning it because we want to have this one in the bottom on the right side up. And now we're going to bring this strip here, right sides together. Okay, so it would be either this way or this way, depending on what your right side is. Do not worry about the direction of that angle, okay? here. Mark it. And pin it to the side. Turn it so you have the right side on top, and so on and so forth until you've joined them all. And then we'll go take it to the machine and seam it. But it's, as you can see, it's not too taxing. It might be a little more work than the other method, although when you do the continuous one, then you're cutting with scissors, which is pretty slow and also not as accurate. Here I know I have very straight lines, which when I do it with scissors, I don't. You know, they both have their advantages and disadvantages. I do love the cutting ease of this method. And now, honestly, now that I figure out how to do these are super short seams. So once I have everything joined, it takes no time to do it on the machine. So, you know, try them both and see what you like best. Just remember, okay, you're putting them here at right angles, and you're not doing that. You're not starting at the straight angle here. You're starting from one of the outside edges. Okay, that's the trick. Because if you sew that, it's not gonna work. You're gonna have a right angle, which I've done too. I used to hate sewing the tape together. Now I'm a little more confident. So here's my strip all pinned up, and what I'm going to do, I have my machine set to a short stitch, and I have my regular zigzag foot on, although it might not be a bad idea to use the walking foot, okay, because your seam is not on the bias, but everything else is, so it's not very stable. So it might be a good idea to use it, especially if you have the open toe one. Okay. All right, and all we're gonna do is sew the seam, remove pins as you go. That's it. There's no backing up at either end. And we're going to do this with every seam. Doesn't matter what side you start on. Okay. Just lining up with your needle. So your seam with short stitches. And then when we've done the whole strip, and depending on how big your rectangle was, you'll have more or less seams to sew. And once we've done them all, then we'll go back and press it and trim all these ends. All right, here's my pile. First thing we're gonna do is cut off these tails. And I do 1/8 of an inch. Just line that up there. So to me, maybe this is the part of the process that puts me off a little bit, because it's a lot of little ends, and then we still have to do the dog ears. On the other hand, I really do love that quick cutting, so, and I really don't like cutting with scissors. Among other things, it hurts my wrist. So, you know, I guess they both have their applications and use. Okay, that part is done. Now, before we use our bias kit, we need to press the seams open and get rid of those dog ears. All right. Let's give this a little steam. And you know what? Chopstick. These little seams are a little fiddly.
All right. Once we get the hang of it, it'll go a little faster. And you know, this step, as I said, this is like fiddly because you're doing one by one, whereas when you do the continuous method, you know, you do it all at once. But ironing that twisty seam on the continuous method it's pretty tough too. So that is no picnic. You have to be like rolling that open on the, okay, here we go. You know, on a narrow surface like your sleeve ironing board. Now we need to get rid of the dog ears. Usually only on one side. So I'm just gonna push this in and help it along with that, with my awl. Okay. Now this is very fine fabric. So I find that instead of just pulling my, you know, my tape maker away, it helps if I push it against my ironing mat. I'm not pushing too hard, but I'm keeping it perpendicular to it. And I find that it really helps keep things, you know, keep those seam allowances towards the inside. They meet right in the middle. See how nice it turns? Whereas if I'm pulling, it's just not so exciting. I also hold the tape with my fingers. I hold it up so that it's feeding very evenly. Okay? Now, when you get to the seams, just pay attention. Let me center this. Okay, there it is. Recenter. Here comes the seam. Just give it a little extra attention with your iron. There. Maybe a little steam. There we go. Fine. And you know, don't worry too much if you have uneven edges, you know, where the seams, where the two strips meet at the seam, because that's going to go in the center. So it really isn't such, you know, as a big a deal as you would think. And really, you will not know the difference when you're installing your tape. Okay, so you just keep doing this until you get all the way to the end, and then you roll it up and you'll have your bias step ready for all your projects. Okay?
Well, what do you think? Continuous method or quick cutting method? I guess they both have their advantages and disadvantages, but let us know in the comments what you prefer. And as always, if you have any questions, let us know, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.